I'm simply saying when Paul says be away from the bodies, be with the Lord, there's nobody that I've ever heard of that advocates that people that go to heaven have a spiritual body and then they come down and get an overcoat spiritual body at the rapture. No. You have a... and that's why if you read 1 Corinthians 15, it talks about an actual procedure and saying the dead are risen, I think it says first, and then we that proceed will follow. And it's talking about putting on this spiritual body. And I'm simply saying that without that spiritual body, you can't put a white robe on. But yet we see in Revelation, long before the second coming of Christ, over and over again, that these people, and that's why I went through those verses, appear to have bodies, appear to be in armies, appear to be ready to make war, and they're wearing white robes. Now, how did they get that way? And I'm saying they got that way as a result of the rapture. Therefore, in this verse, we have a verse here that is identifying the clouds as the ones that were raptured, and then wanting to make it clear to you that this second coming is a different event than the event that is responsible for allowing these people to come back with Jesus in the clouds. Does that make sense to you at all?
Yeah.
Yeah. I just wanted to mention a verse here. This is from Philippians 3:21. It says, who shall change our vile body that it may be fashioned like unto his glorious body, according to the working whereby he is able to subdue all things unto himself.
Okay. Now, I think that you got my drift there. Now we go, and it says he's coming back in the clouds. Now, if we conclude that that is referring to the people that were raptured, the cloud of witnesses, not the ones that were spoken of in Hebrews 12 there, but the concept, such a cloud of witnesses being many people that we saw are in heaven prior to the second coming, and those people that were even involved in the warfare up there were legitimate people, and now they're coming back, and they're referred to as clouds the same way as the cloud of witnesses in Hebrews 12. And then it says, and every eye will see him. See who? Even those who pierced him. And all the tribes of the earth will mourn over him. So it is to be. Amen. First of all, what this does, and we're running out of time, so I'm going to kind of fast track this for you. Do you remember last week when we used the term Jesus is returning soon and the time is near? Do you remember that? And do you remember who I said could use those verses to support their case? Who was that? The preterist. The preterist is going to use the concept coming back soon and the time is near to support their case. But here we have the actual time when he comes back. And it says, every eye will see him, even those who pierced him. And all the tribes of the earth will mourn over him. Now, does it make sense that we don't have a historical sighting in history of the return of Christ? I mean, if every eye were to have seen him, and all the tribes were seeing him, don't you think that somebody would have written it down? Don't you think there'd be some historical record of that event? That sounds like a pretty significant event, does it not? And wouldn't it doesn't say just the believers. It says everybody. So wouldn't you have Josephus making some notes? Wouldn't you have some of the other Jews making some notes and some other people that they saw this return of Christ prior to 70 AD? Or at 70 AD?
If I'm understanding what you're saying, are you making the point that the preterist position says that Jesus actually returned 70 AD?
Yeah.
I didn't think that was their position.
Yeah.
I thought that they said that the Antichrist, being Nero, and the destruction of Jerusalem, all those things took place, but the return of Christ hasn't happened yet.
No.
I didn't know
Yeah, they may. There's a split within the preterist view, but some of them think everything's been complete.
Oh, wow.
You see.
Yeah, that's absurd.
Yeah, that event sounds like it's on CNN or something.
And so, if in fact a preterist thought that Christ had returned by 70 A.D., and he says, well, it was some kind of a spiritual return, this verse says it's not a spiritual return. This verse is saying that every eye is going to see him. So we would have a historical record of that event outlined within history. Wouldn't that seem reasonable?
Can I read television in that verse or no? Am I stretching?
Well, I don't care whether you use television or whether it's supernatural or like Bob was or someone was alluding, Greg, maybe on the clouds. Whatever it is, everybody's seeing it. And they're seeing it with their eyes. Okay? And that, frankly, differs with the account in 1 Corinthians 15, where it says, behold, I tell you a mystery, we shall not all sleep, but we shall be changed in a moment, in the twinkling of the eye. So there we have an event which is in the twinkling of the eye, and here we have an event to where everyone's going to see two different events. Now, they would like to say that the twinkling of the eye event happens just prior to him proceeding on down to earth, and so they're kind of like the same event. It's that we're raptured up and then we proceed on down to the earth. And that's a real nice story, but we're still faced with who in the heck are all those guys in heaven? Okay? Because prior to this time, we don't have anybody that is qualified to be in heaven other than who? No. Who would be some possibilities of people that could be in heaven in bodies, spiritual bodies? Who could be possibilities?
Elijah.
Elijah?
Enoch.
Enoch?
No, Moses died, 120.
Okay. Elijah? Didn't he appear at the Mount of Transfiguration?
Yes.
So there's three names. Do we have any other names?
Well, Moses did appear too.
Yeah, but
Okay.
he died.
Do we have any other name? Did he oppose the Mount of Transfiguration?
Yeah, he was there.
Yeah, so then he's got a spiritual body. They could see him, so he could have proceeded on up to heaven.
Yeah.
So do we have anybody else? Is there anybody else that would qualify to be in heaven at prior to this event, if it wasn't the church? And we're talking multitudes of people, according to the verses we said are up there. So we have to be able to get multitudes of people up there somehow. And how do we get those multitude of people? So far we've got 3 people you guys have named. Is there any others that we could say that could be in heaven in spiritual bodies, biblically? Can you think of anybody else? Well, let me help you.
Believers that died?
Let me help you. Pardon me?
Believers that died?
No, believers that die don't have spiritual bodies until the rapture in 1 Corinthians 15:52.
I just watched the Bible.
So if in fact 1 Corinthians 52 and the second coming are almost the same spontaneous event,
Oh, I know who.
we still have to account for the people, the massive number of people that are up there in heaven based upon the verses that I read prior. How'd they get there? Who are they? Go ahead.
2 witnesses?
No, they're okay. The 2 witnesses. Okay, yeah, you could say that at the second coming. We could have the 2 witnesses. Okay, so there we've got 5 people, but that doesn't make an army. That doesn't make the numbers that Revelation's talking about here. the verses that I quoted. I went through all those Revelation verses. It doesn't give us the numbers. Do we have any more than 5 that we can come up with? Well, let me help you. There's another event that occurred to where it was possible to get some people in heaven with spiritual bodies, and that was at the time of the crucifixion of Christ. They came out of the graves, and then they walked into the town, and they displayed themselves. The question is, who were these guys that came up out of the graves with their bodies and walked into the cities and displayed themselves? Who were these guys?
Probably like the prophets or something.
The Old Testament saints?
Martyrs.
Okay. In my opinion, and pardon the expression, they would have to have been hot shots from the Old Testament, similar to Elijah and Moses and Enoch and that kind of a concept. They'd be the